Welcome to Knowledge Drop, where we talk about science, engineering, and technology that makes us just want to drop all these knowledge bombs on everybody.
Dropping knowledge bombs. That's right.
I'm Derek.
My name's Hayden. And yeah, we're coming at you guys this week. Really excited about this episode. We're going to be talking about our 5 favorite engineering moments from movies. So I'm pumped about this. I don't know. I didn't expect this to be so like involved, but once I started looking into it, I was like, wow, this is awesome. And a lot of the stuff that shows up in movies is, based in real life thoughts and like actual projects. So it's really cool. And I'm excited to share my list. We don't know each other's lists. So I've got my top 5. Derek got his top 5. So I guess we'll
should be very interesting. Something cool is a lot of the science fiction that you read about inspires you to want to create that technology in reality. If you go back into like the 70s, 80s, 90s, or even farther back, like Jules Verne, a writer, science fiction, he wrote a lot of things that were way ahead of his time, and it inspired people to try and make that possible. And it's really cool that these are the things that are going to inspire us to try and create these things.
Who was it you were telling me about? A YouTube channel, I think, that they dedicate themselves. I think we mentioned it. Like they dedicate themselves just to like trying to make movie stuff for real. Like they made the Predator helmet.
It's the Hacksmith YouTube channel, and it's a series they have that's ongoing called Make It Real. They've done like Spider-Man's web shooters and the Predator Vision.
Nice.
Captain America's shield and his Wakandan shield that like pumps up and down.
Sweet.
Thor's hammer that you can't lift.
For real?
Yeah, they made one out of lead. And then they made one that has like electromagnets in the bottom so that when it's on steel plate, you can't physically pick it up because it's fun. And there's even a fingerprint reader on the electromagnetic one that only he calls himself the Hacksmith.
Right.
Only the Hacksmith can pick it up. So it's kind of cool.
Only he is worthy.
Yeah, exactly.
Possess the power of Thor. Cool. All right. Well, I think that it's my turn this week to share a little fun fact. So I wanted to share, actually, it's a really important fact that I think gets forgotten about sometimes. And that is the size. Well, I guess it's just a matter of population. So you hear a lot these days about overpopulation. And I just want everyone to remember that every single human being can fit inside of the city of Los Angeles if we all stood shoulder to shoulder. So
that's an interesting thought.
If every human being stood shoulder to shoulder, we would all fit within 500 square miles, which would be like about the city of Los Angeles, right? We could all fit just right there in that one city. Okay. So what that means to me personally is that we don't have an issue of overpopulation. Not at all. In fact, we could use more people because more people that come and are born and can grow up with their own ideas, their own innovations, their own contributions, the better. So we actually need more people, and it's not a matter of overpopulation. It's a matter of organization. So right now, the way that you see the world is that everybody's crammed on the coast, and at least just talking from the United States point of view, the middle of the U.S., I mean, if you just generally speaking, you could say it's empty. Like you could compared to the coast.
I've lived in Kansas. I can personally attest to the emptiness of the Midwest and, those areas.
So we live in Arizona. 80% of Arizona is uninhabited. So just think about that. I mean, you've got Phoenix, you've got Tucson. I guess you've got Flagstaff, which is like, I mean, not big, right? You've got a couple little towns up north, and that's it. Like, that's all we've really got. Like, you get outside of Phoenix and Tucson, there's not much here. Like, it feels like there's a lot of people here because there's millions of people packed into this one city, right? But every time I drive up to Utah or to Las Vegas, I just see emptiness for miles and miles and miles. So I just wanted to share that fun fact that we, as human beings, we don't take up that much space. It's a matter of organizing, because you see one person per car and you see thousands and thousands and thousands of cars, right?
Yeah.
But it's a matter of organization, finding new methods of transportation, new methods for growing food, getting resources,
Well,
right?
see, I think you're right. It is organization, and I think distribution. Excuse me. I think distribution also plays a role in that, because we have this like big world economy that, you know, we have, like in Arizona, we can very easily grow bananas, but we get them imported from Mexico and from Africa. Like
Yeah.
it's crazy to think that there's still people in the world that are starving. And so
There's
it's like,
people here in our city that are starving,
yeah.
which is weird to think about, but I mean, it does happen. I think we're in a, I mean, I'm not really one to talk. We've been pretty blessed, but I think we're in a pretty good spot. If you can go into, like a loaf of bread at Walmart is $1. Like their French bread,
Hmm.
it's $1, and it's a whole loaf of French bread. I mean, all I'm saying is there's ways to figure stuff out, you know? Obviously there's a lot of issues, but
Yeah. I don't remember the exact quote, but it's something along the lines of like desperation or the need will drive innovation.
right.
Because in the like the 70s and 80s, I can't remember when this book was published, but it talked about a population bomb, meaning that like population is going to be increasing exponentially soon, and we're not going to be able to feed everyone, or let
Right.
alone give everyone water. And everyone was freaking out about it. And that's when I think it was in the 70s, because there was a big push for, you know, limiting the amount of children that people can have and stuff like that. But what actually happened was, yes, the population increased like it was projected, but our capacity to make food and to grow food also increased significantly. We were able to
Yeah.
grow it better. We were able to grow more of it. We were able to grow it in better ways. I don't know if I already said that, but it
Right.
was, those are the things that, like, because we need it more, we're going to find a way to accomplish it.
Yeah. I don't see humanity dying from overpopulation, you know. I see a lot of other threats, but that's not really one of them that's high on my mind, because the more human beings, it's almost the better. Because when you talk about overpopulation, you're imagining, like you said, a population bomb. It's like that 5 billion people are going to appear out of nowhere. And now you're going to say, oh my gosh, where would we find food for them? Well, it doesn't really work like that. People are born into families, and a lot of those families can support more people than they actually do right now. Like if you have a family of 3 kids, there's a lot of families of 3 kids that can provide food for 10, 15, 20 kids. Not saying that they're going to have that many kids, but just the just like you said, distribution.
Mm-hmm.
um you know, you have one millionaire, and I'm not promoting communism or anything. I'm very anti-communist, but I'm just saying there's enough, humanity has enough for us all to be taken care of. It's just a matter of organizing all those resources and actually politically, like finding a way to, you know, make sure that everyone's taken care of, and they fall into a safety net if they need it.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't
Yeah,
know
I
why we
mean,
got up deep in this subject, but
well, just one more thought. Something that like I personally have been researching and want to do one day when I have a house, because I'm just in an apartment right now. But I look at lawns, like grass lawns, and it's such a drain and such a waste on resources,
Yeah.
time, energy, water. And I keep seeing all these YouTube channels where these guys are like vertically farming, but also taking every square foot of their property, which is like a quarter acre, third acre, however big the plot is, and they're just growing so much food on it. And they're, because they can grow so much and they're so efficient at it, and they can
Hmm.
control every little aspect of like the soil composition and this like the nutrients that it gets and the water, like drip irrigation and all that stuff. The system works really, really well, and they sell these crops and they make six figures every year.
Jeez.
And I'm just like,
That's
I can't.
agricultural engineering right there.
Yeah. And I'm like, for me, I'm just like, I should totally be able to pull that off.
Yeah.
Um, and
Yeah.
so
You'll
it's,
have to get into that more. Like we'll have to dive into that because that sounds really interesting. I have a lot of questions about that, but
yeah, I'd love to go into it more. I have a whole list of all the things that I want to incorporate and make it as automated as possible and closed loop and, you know, all these different things. So we'll have to put that in the rotation soon.
yeah, I want to hear about that. Cool. Well, let's dive into our lists.
Yeah.
Get right into it. I I guess I'll start us off. So, our 5 favorite engineering moments from movies, right? So, number 1 for me is the what's it called? I think it's got a name, but the big mothership from Wally. So that's gonna
Oh
be
yeah, I can't remember the name of it.
let I say we count down from 5, right? So this is my number 5, and well, it's just a really cool idea. So it's called a generation ship. There's an actual there's people who actually look at doing this.
Mhm.
Basically, it's like a Noah's Ark type of idea for humanity that one day we might need to leave, right? So they are looking to have a ship that could sustain human life, but also be self-sufficient, right? And a guy in 1919 actually came up with this idea first. I think he was a science fiction writer. He wrote about how the sun would die or something, and so they would get humanity onto a ship and survive. And I just thought it was really cool. Um, it's there's some challenges, like they would need you'd need a biosphere, right? So you need something that can provide energy, food, air, and water to everyone on board. You need enough fuel, right? You have to overcome social problems because, I mean, a society of 200 people or 1,000 people could easily destroy itself, right?
Oh yeah, definitely.
And then it would take it would take a few thousand years to get to the nearest star system.
Depending on propulsion, which is another really good
Traveling,
episode that we should do.
yeah, traveling at uh, sub light speeds, right? So underneath light speeds, they're saying, yeah, it would probably take a few thousand years unless we found some breakthrough thing that would, you know, get us there a little bit
Yeah,
faster.
it depends on how desperate we are.
Yeah, you get desperate enough, maybe we'll find a way.
Yeah, just to tease it, there are a bunch of there are a few different engines that involve exploding nuclear bombs behind your ship and riding the propulsive wave through space.
Nice. Yeah, that's a useful way to use atomic bombs, I guess.
Yeah,
That's awesome. And yeah, and your ship already has, the hull is against can protect against radiation and stuff, so you don't
yeah,
have to worry about any of that.
it's a really cool idea. What's funny is, so I started watching a show called The Expanse,
Hmm.
and if you haven't heard of it, it's a really great science fiction show, and it's based on some books. Um, but in that series, they talk about the Mormons building a giant ship that they're going to go to another solar system. And so it's kind of funny. So like as members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, we don't call ourselves Mormons anymore, but it was kind of funny in the show they're talking about Mormons and how they're going to build the ship and you
Breakaway
know
society.
yeah, just kind of start over in some new solar system.
Well, I mean, it's kind of funny because we kind of did do that
Yeah, a
with
little
Utah.
history lesson.
Like
Yeah.
we were the settlers of Utah, so if you wonder why there's so many of us there, it's
Yeah,
because we
exactly.
kind of got there first and founded the whole place. So crazy. Might as well I guess it's just funny to think about that on like a planetary scale, like a planet full of
Yeah,
church
exactly.
members.
Yep.
But that's funny. Cool. So that's my number 5. You want to get yours?
Yeah. So mine aren't any particular order, so I can't
Okay.
say like this one's my favorite.
Well, at least keep your number 1. I don't know. Make number 1 the best one.
Yeah.
At
So
least.
I
The
have
other the other
two.
4 don't matter.
So
Okay.
I have two that are my favorites, and I'll save those two for the last parts.
Okay.
So I don't want to say my last because I still absolutely love the book and movie, but in The Martian, when Mark Watney is trapped on Mars, he figures out how to farm, and then he's like, but I just planted all these potatoes, and now I'm gonna need X amount of water.
Right.
He's like, well, I know how to make water. You take hydrogen, you add oxygen, and you burn it. And I love the the little like I don't know how to describe it. Like he's just, oh, I can take some of this and I can take some of that and I can tape it together and put this plastic bag over it and
Yeah, he's solving problems
yeah. And I
because
just go
he's
ahead.
desperate.
Yeah, no, it's the only thing he can do.
Hmm.
But like, and it's just great that he's able to do such simple chemistry with such like simple engineering principles that with so limited materials and devices
Yeah.
around him that he's able to make all of these different things work. And I don't know,
Yeah.
it was really great to see that. I always nerd out.
It's amazing how creative you can start to get when all of a sudden you are about to die if you can't
Yeah,
come up with anything else.
exactly.
But he's like, yeah, this is what water's made out of. This is the process for making it. So I should be able to make it. Like there should be a way. And that's an amazing movie. Yeah, that's a great one. The guy lives off potatoes and the soil is his own. I mean, the soil's not his feces, but
A good
his
portion of it is poop.
right, yeah. But hey,
um,
he survived, so
yeah, speaking of poop, I one of my favorite quotes of the movie is, "I'm gonna have to science the crap out of this."
yeah.
I love that because it's true. Like he has no other option but to just go straight to the bare bones science and physics of little things like that.
Yeah, just breaking down the basic science, get back to the basics, and then work your way from there. Like, okay, I need water, I need food. That's two very important things.
Yeah.
So solve those two problems, and you're good to go. You'll survive.
Yeah. And
Sweet.
just as a side note, do you know how the Martian book came to be?
No.
So Andy Weir is the writer of The Martian, and he is not a writer. He's a software engineer, and he in his spare time was writing these different scenarios and posting them on different forums and Reddit threads and stuff like that, asking professionals and other people who know about these things to like say like, could this work or could this not work, and if it doesn't work, how could you make it work?
Uh-huh.
And after months and months of these guys critiquing all of his little scenarios, they were like, this sounds like you could turn this into a really awesome book. And
From
so
Reddit thread to book,
yeah, right. And then to movie.
then to big successful movie. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome. Yeah. All right.
So what's
Move on to
next?
number 4. So recently rewatched Back to the Future.
Ooh, yeah, that's a good one.
So I was just thinking about the DeLorean and how does it actually work. So obviously Doc left out some details about time travel and whatnot, but what's it called? The flux capacitor, right?
Mhm. Flux capacitors.
The flux capacitor. You remember how, well, maybe we still will, but we thought about making a shirt. And if you know, this will only be funny if you know physics, but not that we even know that much physics, but we were thinking about making a shirt with a metal sphere on it, right? That said no flux given
Yeah.
because
And
metal doesn't conduct flux or something like that. I
yeah,
can't even
so
remember anymore.
yeah, just off the top of my head, I can't remember all of it, but when you have a metal hollow sphere, there are no flux lines inside of the sphere because all of the electric field lines or yeah, electric field lines,
Hmm.
the flux lines all go to the surface of the sphere. And so
Right.
there can't be any flux lines. I think that's how it
No,
is. But if
yeah, we don't
the
need to
lines
get deep
go,
into that.
yeah, we'll figure it out and then we'll post it on the t-shirt.
Point is, it was a fantastic physics pun and still should be a shirt.
Yeah. Yep, for sure.
So yeah, I was reading a little bit about nuclear fission, how you're colliding n- um, you're colliding protons with neutrons, and the difference in their mass is what produces a huge either absorption or expansion of energy. Um, so pretty much what Doc was saying is that we need 1.2 gigawatts of power to make that time travel happen, right? Do you have any idea how much 1.2 gigawatts is? It's a lot.
Well, considering I only have like 60-watt bulbs, so times that,
Right.
so it goes um, kilo, mega, giga,
Right.
the kilo, and then mega is million, giga is billion, so 121 billion watts.
Yep.
You could power like every light bulb in the United States.
Well, yeah, I don't know, maybe.
Depending on
Um,
how many light bulbs are in the United States.
I read a study. They said that you could power 700,000 houses for a year
Wow.
with that much energy. So yeah, maybe. It's an insane amount of energy. So I guess that plutonium did come in handy, Doc.
Yeah, right.
Um, so yeah, that's my number 4. So hit us with yours.
So mine is from a little movie called Interstellar.
Oh man, that's your number 4. I thought that was gonna be your number 1.
So while I was really thinking about this one, and while I absolutely love the movie, it's more about physics than engineering. Like
Really? Yeah,
there are little things about
astrophysics.
engineering, but there's not a lot of big engineering moments.
Right, because he's an engineer, but you don't really see him
Like build something or
engineer a lot. Yeah.
yeah. Um, but what I do love is the concept of, somehow controlling gravity. And
Right.
they were able to take a station, they built a station on Earth and were able to control gravity such that they could lift this station from Earth to space. And to me,
Yeah.
like being able to control gravity, that would solve all of our energy storage problems because like we've talked about before, we could store batteries in the like using gravity with weights and stuff.
Like
Um,
perpetual motion.
Not so. I mean, when we talked about energy storage devices, you could use a wind turbine to pull up a,
Right. A
a
heavy
weight,
object.
and
Hmm.
then when you need the energy, you just let it fall back down and spin a generator in reverse, and you have electricity.
Right.
With if you could control gravity, you don't need the windmill. You could just turn the device on, and then this weight floats up, and then turn it off with a, I guess there's a cable or something attached to
An
it.
off switch.
Yeah. Or I guess you could even just have a weight suspended with a cable up and down and just have the device switch on and off, so it just goes up and down as the gravity gets turned on and off. But anyway, getting off the topic. I love that idea, because then like transportation is totally changed. We don't need airplanes to generate lifts. We just need them to carry a anti-gravity generator thing. Um, so that was one thing from that movie that just
Well,
catches.
guess what? That was my number 3. So,
Well, so the other engineering moment that I really like that hits on multiple levels is when they're driving to school and they see that drone, and
uh-huh.
he lets his son drive and he lets his daughter point um the boom, the
The boom?
satellite receiver.
Oh, yeah.
It's like he knows exactly what to do, and he uses a computer and he's typing away and he gets control of it. And I was just like, he's a mechanical engineer and he just hacked into
I
a foreign
think he's,
country's drone.
yeah, a little smarter than your average mechanical engineer.
I mean, mechanical engineer was able to hack a drone and can pilot spaceships.
Right.
He's more than the average Joe in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Um, one of the things that I learned about that movie, so they had an actual astrophysicist. His name is Kip Thorne. He's a theoretical physicist. He was the actual, like, well, he said to Christopher Nolan, if it's not based in real science, then I won't okay it. And Christopher Nolan was like, well, as long as it doesn't interfere with making the movie or whatever.
Yeah.
So there were some things that he straight up shot down because he was like, no, that's too fantastical. So everything you see in the movie is like, it could happen, and it's actually based on real theories, real equations, real thoughts. And one of the craziest things, so when they're doing the black hole scenes, when
Yeah.
I think when he's looking at it and when he starts to go through, they said that one frame of the black hole, how it's all like bending and like the light is going crazy through it.
Yeah.
They were saying one frame was taking 100 hours to render the graphics, right?
I totally believe it.
One frame is taking 100 hours.
So
They said there was 800 terabytes of data that went into like just those black hole scenes.
yeah.
It's insane.
So there's actually a book that Kip Thorne wrote. It's called The Science of Interstellar. A lot of it goes way over my head, but
Oh yeah.
he actually does break down the science of all the physics and all of the astrophysical phenomenon and the orbital mechanics and all of those things. But he also said that the black hole that you see, he had to work with a company in England to create equations to make the black hole mathematically correct. So that's like the most
Right.
accurate way to look at a black hole.
It's so cool that that's, in a movie.
You would think that they'd want to get more scientists and engineers involved in movies like that to make them so realistic and like tangible.
Yeah, because when you don't, then people just start to, because it was in a movie, air quotes,
Mm-hmm.
people start to not believe it. They're like, you're like, oh man, that's stuff you see in the movies, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And that generally turns people away, thinking like, oh yeah, this is never going to be possible. But a lot of these things are or should be based in reality. So I think that's what makes it more fun to watch.
Yeah. And the last thing about Interstellar, fun fact about Interstellar is so Kip Thorne, the scientific person behind all of the physics, he actually won a Nobel Prize in 2018, 2016 for gravitational waves.
Oh, so he knows about gravity and all that.
Yeah. So like not only did he help create Interstellar to be the most scientifically accurate as possible, but he also was able to contribute. There were others that
On
there's
the
another that
forefront.
won the award, but he was one of the scientists that won the Nobel Prize for gravitational waves. It was really cool.
Yeah, so he's on the forefront of the actual study of this stuff. So that's awesome. Cool. Yeah, I think Interstellar could have been both of our number ones. It deserves to be there. It's just kind of like they're interchangeable.
Yeah,
So
I have a hard time when people are like, "What's your favorite movie?" And I'm like, I don't. It just depends on what mood I'm in, because
right.
sometimes I just want to watch the Interstellar movie. I'm ready to dedicate the 3+ hours to this movie, and then other days I'm like, you know what? I just want to chill and watch. Uh,
Something dumb.
yeah, something dumb.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that. Um, so let's see. I did my number 3 and you did yours, right? Or is that your
Um,
number 4?
so I've done The Martian and I've done Interstellar.
Okay.
So I need my number three.
Okay, go for it.
I'm going to talk about Ready Player One.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so this one was pretty easy to break down. There's not a whole lot of engineering, but the one thing that I think really got my wheels turning was, yes, it's VR, and I've just started looking into VR, and I had my first like VR experience in January, and I played for like 45 minutes, and I didn't even realize that 45 minutes had passed. It was like I was having so much
Oh
fun. I
yeah.
was so immersed.
Yeah.
But the thing that Ready Player One kind of takes into account is it's called haptic feedback.
Right.
And it's that thing where when you reach out to hold something, you can feel it. Like there's a tactile feeling. I don't know how else to
Right,
explain
right.
that.
Yeah, you pick up a water bottle, it feels like you're picking up a water bottle.
Yeah.
Like it has the same plasticky give to it.
Mm-hmm.
It just feels real, right?
And
Even though
so,
there's nothing in your hand.
yes. And if you watch Smarter Every Day YouTube channel, he does a few videos on haptic feedback, and it is mind blowing where we're at right now. Um, there are gloves that will lock in place when you grasp an object in the VR vision, like in the VR
So
world,
cool.
so
So
that
cool.
your hand, it isn't around anything, but because the ribbons that are on the front and back of your fingers lock, you can't move your fingers anymore in, and so it feels like
Right.
you have something in
It's
your hand.
yeah, it's the same sensation.
And then he also shows like a glove that when you put it into, I don't know if you have to put it into the device, but just you'll have to watch the Smarter Everyday videos on the haptic feedback stuff. But it shows a dragon breathing fire on his hand, and he
Hmm.
can feel the heat on his hand. And then the
So
dragon
cool.
breathes ice, and he can feel the cold ice like in VR. It was really
Man.
cool. So that would be my number three is Ready Player One.
Yeah, that's awesome. And me and you watched I think it was Smarter Every Day, where there's some actual engineers in real life that are developing the 360 treadmill.
Mm-hmm. The
So you
Infinideck.
can run in any direction, and no matter how fast you run, that treadmill just keeps you in place. So you can run to the left, to the right, you can back up, and you're not moving anywhere, just like in the movie. And
Mm-hmm.
there's people that are actually, actually working on that right now.
Well, they actually used that thing that's Smarter Every Day, Destin Sandlin, the thing that he was doing the video on, they actually used in the movie.
Sweet.
And so what's funny about that is it's an actual treadmill that moves underneath you. It's not like you have to wear socks and you like just slip in place.
Right.
It actually moves,
It's
as
got
you.
a track to it.
Mm-hmm.
So you're running to the right, you're running to the left, you're diving behind objects, and then you're pulling out your gun, and it feels like there's a gun in your hands because your gloves lock into place around like the grips, right?
Yep.
And then you can pull the trigger and actually feel a kickback. You know, once you get a full suit on and stuff. So
Yeah, and they
I
have
mean, that's
suits
not
now that
real
simulate
yet, but
bullets hitting your chest too. So it's
yeah,
pretty
you're
cool.
getting pounded in the chest or you get stabbed in the back or something. I mean, it's your modern warfare dreams, fantasies come true, right?
Hmm.
Like once that hits the market as like I can imagine it being as big a deal as it was in the books and movies. Like
Oh, absolutely.
nobody goes outside anymore. It's just you're in your VR because you can literally do anything and go anywhere. It's crazy.
I mean, here in Arizona, I don't really want to go outside, but if I can get my workout in, you playing Beat Saber, which
Oh
is a
yeah.
VR game, yeah, I'm totally down for that.
Yeah, why not? I mean, were we made? I mean, maybe. But were we made to go out in 120-degree heat? I don't know, man. I don't
Uh,
know.
my gut says
A little,
no.
a little too pale for that right now.
Yeah.
All right. So let's move on to number 2. So my number 2 is from The Imitation Game.
No
See
way.
this movie?
Oh, that was on my list, but it didn't make the top five.
Yeah, man. It's too good to not be on here. Um, if you guys don't know, The Imitation Game, Benedict Cumberbatch, right? He plays Alan Turin, I think is his name. He's a real life guy who uh, he didn't build the machine. I mean, they kind of portray it differently in the movie than in real life. I was reading about it on Wikipedia. Um, it was a really like collaborative effort, right? A lot of people worked on it, but mainly Alan Turin and another guy. I think his last name was Goodwin. They worked on it together and were able to using a machine, right? During World War II, they were able to break the German Enigma, which is basically their coding, right? Their was Enigma a machine? I can't remember if it was just the
You can
coding
think of it,
system they had.
yeah, you can just think of it as a typewriter that has a specific sequence that when you press the letter A, it will encode it in a different number or letter. And
Right,
so they changed the sequence of the numbers and letters so that when you are typing your message, it encodes it differently. And you just need a
right.
phrase to get the decoding.
So the Germans were really good at coding, and for a long time they weren't able to break their codes. And so they had this guy. Well, I mean, they had a lot of people working on these machines that would basically, in a way, they would think, um, but they would find a way using all these switches and dials to run through thousands and tens of thousands and millions of possibilities until they would find and actually break down the code and be like, okay, they would. At first, they just popped out like a letter, like they decoded one letter at a time or something, and then they dialed it in to where they could get it to spit out, words and phrases of like, yeah, this is the decoded message. So crazy.
Yeah, well, and if you think about it, it's the most primitive computer. Like it's a
Yeah.
mechanical computer, not a digital computer like what we're looking at each other on now. And the way that that computer worked, a mechanical computer, is there's on and there's off. Same thing with the digital computer. It's 0 or 1, on, off.
Right.
And so they were able to mechanically, which is mind-boggling to think about, mechanically have a switch that moves on and off and test millions of different combinations of letters to see if they couldn't crack the code. And it was just crazy.
Yeah, I love it. It's so fun to watch, especially in the movie, how, you know, it's it's something that helped them win the war. So helped them to know where the Germans were moving and what they were doing at different times, what their plans were. So it's amazing what those kinds of breakthroughs can do for the world. So that's my number 2.
So my number two, you probably haven't heard of this, but if you haven't seen it, you absolutely need to watch this movie. It's called Tucker, The Man and His Dream.
Okay.
And so it's a movie that takes place in the 1950s, 1960s time frame. And it's about um, this guy named Tucker, and he, made some money inventing a special glass dome for tanks and airplanes, and was helping the military produce these and made a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
And the war was over, and he was like, "What am I going to do next?" And he was like, "I want to build the future car." Um, and so the premise of the movie is him like having this idea and going through all the different features that he wants to include. And let me just tell you some of the features that he wanted to include, and your jaw will drop that these things aren't just standard anyway. um, Automatic braking system, ABS brakes,
Uh-huh.
an engine
Wow.
in the back, like in the trunk, not in the front of the car,
Uh-huh.
fuel injection, a roll bar to protect the passengers if the car
Right.
rolls, laminated wind shields, so that when you get in a crash, the glass doesn't just shatter and come and like cut your face up. It will shatter and
Right.
stay in place.
Right. Right.
Disc brakes, self-sealing tires that are like there's no tube in the tire. It's just a self-sealing tubeless tire.
So you run over a nail and it can seal itself, right?
Yeah. Yep. And then a headlight that will turn when you turn the steering wheel so that you can see where you're turning.
Wow.
So all of these things he wanted to put in his car, and a lot of them made it into the car, but a few of them didn't, just for pricing, like disc brakes. But anyway, it was just amazing to see him go through the journey of building this car and all of the problems he was having. So it's kind of like an engineer slash entrepreneur movie, because he's kind of like, you'll think of Tony Stark a little bit in the movie, but
Right.
it's just amazing to think that all of these big companies back in the day, like Ford, they tried really, really hard to put this guy out of business. Uh,
Yeah.
because if he would have made a car with all of these improvements, it would have been the best car ever.
Well, it sounds like a modern, like 2020 vehicle. Like you buy
Yeah.
a BMW. I mean, I'm sure a lot of cars have this, but I've been in BMWs where it's got the turning with the headlights. So you turn
Mm-hmm.
the wheel and it turns the lights with it. It's so nice. Like it's so nice when you're going around, you're going in a canyon or something and you got a lot of tight turns. You can't really see that well. It helps so much. It's crazy that he already had all those ideas. Like when you were listing all that stuff, I was thinking it sounds like a modern day vehicle, all those things that came
Mm-hmm.
along later, but he already had them in his mind.
Yeah. And what's funny is all these big car companies like Ford, Chrysler, all these guys, they wanted to put them out of business because the way that they were building cars was bare bones. We don't like seatbelts weren't a thing yet, but he wanted to so Tucker wanted seatbelts in his car because he was like, people shouldn't be thrown out of their cars and dying
Yeah.
if something so simple as a seatbelt could save their lives. And he said that it's a funny quote in the movie, but he says, he says the big three car manufacturers should be charged with vehicular manslaughter because they're knowingly
Right.
killing these people by not putting seatbelts in their cars. And these big companies, they want to put them out of business because if he puts that car out, it'll be the best car. But then for them to compete, they're going to have to change all of their manufacturing lines, invest millions to research all of these like improvements.
Yeah, they're gonna have to play catch up.
Yeah. And it reminds me of Tesla, like the car
Yeah.
company Tesla, our main man, Elon Musk.
Yep,
Um,
there it is.
they started doing electric cars seriously way before anybody else did. Like everyone else, it was just kind of like
It's just
like a
kind of
little,
like yeah, pleasing, you please some of the hippies and make
yeah,
a hybrid car. But Elon Musk was like, no, I mean, we can actually make electric cars that are better
that are
than
cooler, not
anything
just
else. Yeah.
like.
Yeah,
Do
he
you
made them
remember?
cool too.
Yeah, do you remember when the Nissan Leaf came out and we're all like, "What?"
Like, all right. Yeah, to me, just in my mind as a consumer, like hybrid car doesn't scream cool to me.
Unless it's like the I can't remember which one. I think it's the Porsche Spider
Oh yeah, I haven't seen that
915.
one.
It's nuts.
It makes me think of a Prius.
But yes, you're right.
Like,
The hybrid we all think
uh,
of as a Prius.
right. But then you compare that thought to a Tesla. You see a Tesla driving down the road, you're like, dang, like
Hmm.
you want one of those, you know?
Yep.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah, this whole movie is really great because it just talks about being a good engineer, like having the ethics of designing something for safety so that people don't unknowingly get hurt, and being a good designer and an entrepreneur. It hits all those buttons.
Yeah, it's caring enough about the consequences of what you're creating because, like you said, those big car companies, they don't care if you get thrown out of your car. I mean, they do, but not really. It's like as long as they can make their millions, which what happens to you is kind of up to you, you know?
Yeah, falls by the wayside.
But yeah, but he's actually thinking, well, how is my invention going to be used? How is it going to be how is it going to be part of society, you know, like in a safe way? So that's cool. That's something that engineers actually have to think about and do. So
Yep.
um or else, I mean, today there's actually laws for that type of stuff. Like you can't be dangerous as an engineer and just invent whatever.
Yep. Yeah, there's minimum safety standards and certifications and yada yada yada.
Cool. So that was your number two, right?
Yes, correct.
And I did my number two, The Imitation Game. So I guess that just leaves number one. Um, my number one is the legendary bum 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 ba-dum, bum ba-dum, Star Wars,
Really? Okay. Interesting.
the Death Star.
Hmm.
So like we're sitting here talking about the ethics of engineering and stuff.
Yeah.
And if you want an example of unethical engineering, you may look towards a moon-sized That's No Moon starship capable of destroying entire planets with a giant laser beam. Um, I love the Death Star, and I loved when they made the second Death Star or whatever,
The one
which
in
was
The
like,
Empire Strikes Back,
yeah,
or
it's
the
like
one in The Return of the
planet
Jedi.
sized. It's like planet sized, and it has its own atmosphere, and it's like snowing on there. It's
Oh, you're talking about the Force Awakens one, Star
yeah,
Killer Base.
there's too many,
Yeah.
but yeah, I just think it's amazing. The original Death Star I like the most just because it's the most iconic, it's the coolest. And I was wondering how much would it actually cost to make a Death Star?
Mm, it's pricey.
And yeah, so just looking at Earth, right? Because we don't know any other planets yet. We're not friends with any other galaxies. It would take about 852 quadrillion dollars. So that's more than trillion, that's quadrillion, just to make the steel, just to produce enough
Oh.
steel to get started.
So basically, you'd have to go to the asteroid belt, pick up the asteroid we talked about in our second episode, Psych, bring it home, sell it, and then you just have enough money to make the structure and the skin.
Just the frame. But what I was reading was that maybe what they could have done was grab the core of a planet, like somehow destroy a planet and harvest its core, uh, and that would give you enough like dense material to get started.
Yeah, that'll
Oh
do it.
yeah, interesting
Plus, it's
idea.
already molten, so you could just kind of play with it molten in space.
Yeah, and I thought, well, that's Earth standards, but we don't know on a galactic level. Maybe steel is super super common, and it's just like you could have an entire planet 10 times the size of Earth made mostly of with a bunch of ore on it that you know could make the price of steel in the galaxy pretty cheap.
That's
So
true.
it may not be as expensive. That's just Earth standards.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I love the Death Star because it's got one fatal flaw that we all know about, which is the vents, right? And I
Hmm.
really admire the fact that this was real. It may have been silly, kind of, but in order for a structure that big to exist, it would have to have these exhaust ports. Like that's a real thing. It would have to have these exhaust ports, which is where Luke shot his missiles into, and that's what caused a chain explosion that got down into the core and managed to blow the whole thing up, right?
Hmm.
So that's actually a real thing. Like that's a real idea because anything that big, I mean, you're talking the size of a moon and it's a ship, anything that big would need massive, massive exhaust ports and a way to filter out all the stuff that's being generated inside to make
Yeah,
energy.
all that excess heat has got to go somewhere. Might as well
Not to
hit.
mention your death laser that's going to destroy a planet.
Yeah.
So that's going to throw off some stuff as well that needs to be exhausted out. So that's my number one, just because it's the biggest, it's the baddest, it's the craziest. And I admired how it was kind of like based in reality in that way. Like it was the one weakness that they had. You think they would have put some extra guns around it or something?
Yeah, or maybe like put a cap on it temporarily.
Yeah, like I don't know, buried under a bunch of protective steel armor or something,
Yeah, yeah.
or filter it out. I mean, I don't know. I'm glad that it was destroyed. Obviously, I support the Republic, so
Yeah, I would hope so.
all right, man.
All right, so
What's your
mine,
numero uno?
my number one is Iron Man.
Nice, yeah. That's an obvious one I didn't even think about.
Yeah, I was sure that we were both gonna pick something Iron Man in the five of these movies. That's surprising to me.
Yeah,
Um,
I if I had thought about it longer, I probably would have come across it, but
mhm.
I actually thought about Thanos' glove, but then I was like, well, that's not really anything that that's pretty much all made up. It's not anything engineering related.
Yeah,
But Iron Man 1, the first movie, yeah,
it's definitely the best one of the three, in my
yeah. Oh,
opinion.
absolutely.
So I'm also gonna Iron Man slash Avengers Infinity War.
Sure.
And so there are three things about Iron Man specifically that I love, and I that are, to me personally are huge inspiration. Is so from Avengers Infinity War, the bleeding edge armor that he has, the nanotech stuff.
Uh-huh.
After taking a nanotechnology class and kind of seeing where we are at right now, and seeing what is portrayed in science fiction movies and Marvel movies, it makes me feel like this is very possible. We are programming nanoparticles, nanobots to do whatever we want at that tiny scale. And so like there's a world record for smallest electric motor, and it's only like 12 atoms.
Jeez. That's so weird.
And so it's like these things are starting to be a thing, and it just my imagination goes crazy because anything that Tony Stark can imagine when he's has the bleeding edge armor on him will come to fruition. And there's some like neural link between him and the nanobots that we don't yet have, but Elon Musk, he's on it with that company Neuralink, so we'll see. But the armor itself is just amazing to me, and I want it badly.
Yeah, I loved so much the first movie because it felt so real. You know, as you go along in the Marvel universe, it kind of gets a little bit more fantastical and don't really want to get into, I mean, you because you start to get into a lot of magic stuff like Doctor Strange and
Yeah,
Thor, where it's
I
like
agree.
you're not really so based in reality anymore.
Well, at least with the
Um,
Thor stuff, it's so in the Thor comics, there's a famous quote saying that magic is just science we don't understand yet.
right,
So the stuff that Thor has, like Mjolnir and stuff like that, there is something about that that is scientific. We just don't get it yet. And Thor 2 does a good job of kind of doing little plugs like that. Um, but Doctor Strange, like the actual magic stuff, it's not really my thing.
yeah, it's kind of like
I love Doctor Strange, but
wave your hands in the air and now it's some shield or something, and you're like, I don't really get how that works. But you don't need to. I mean, obviously, no. But I just loved the first Iron Man because it was so. It felt so real. Like you saw Tony Stark build it in the cave. You know, he
Mhm.
didn't do it alone. He had help. Um, and then you saw him survive. You saw him. I really loved that you saw him like trial and error his way
Yep,
through building
that's
the
one of my
suit
favorite parts.
and like all the things that come along with that. Like, then how do you take the suit off? When you launch the suit irresponsibly for the first time when it's not really that ready and you fly up super high, yeah, it freezes and then you can't fly anymore and it stalls out and you fall down.
Yep.
So I love that. It was felt so real. You saw him actually like in the shop, tools, you know, he's working on it and he's like working out the kinks. He even talks about the armor and how like he has to upgrade it later because of his first choice was like not as good.
Yeah.
So cool.
So the bleeding edge armor from Avengers Infinity War was the first thing I like about just Iron Man in general. But going back to the original Iron Man movie, there are two things that also these are two of my favorite things in the entire engineering world.
Yeah.
It's the arc reactor, the idea of having something this small, something fist size that can power something amazingly, more than a battery. Like it just ugh, it's awesome. I love it. I really, really wish it was real.
Yeah.
um,
Maybe one day.
maybe one day we'll see. And then the next thing he discovers when he starts converting the arc reactor energy to propulsion is he needs some flight stabilizers and he uses these palm repulsors. And
Hmm.
it's always baffled me, how do you turn pure electric energy into propulsion? Because you can use like a turbine and generate lift, but you have to have air and they have to be big if you're trying to lift someone. The
Right.
hacksmith, he's a huge fan of Iron Man and he tries really hard to make something that can, you know, get him off the ground.
Hmm.
And it's kind of funny to see him go through the process, but he eventually does find a technology and a company that does something like this with turbines. Um, but the act of converting electricity into like propulsion, like he does
Right.
in the movie, that's the holy grail. We don't know what it is. If it's plasma propulsion, which if it is, then there's some wild like explanation for how it's so powerful because we're going to be using plasma propulsion in space with satellites that NASA's building, but it's tiny.
Yeah.
And so it's like dreams that I would like to accomplish if possible.
I love that scene where, because Obadiah, the bad guy, he's got a bunch of scientists trying to recreate it. And when you're saying that, I just thought of that quote that he has where he's like, Tony Stark built this in a cave with a bunch of scraps. And the guy's just like, well, I'm not Tony Stark. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Yep.
But
Um, Another fun fact about that movie, the guy who says, I'm not Tony Stark, is the little boy from the Christmas Story.
what?
Yeah.
Really?
Hmm.
What? He's like some bald middle-aged man, right?
Yeah. That same guy is in Spider-Man 2. He's the one of the engineers behind the, no
That's
spoilers, but he's in the movie.
that's hilarious. Wow.
What's his name? I don't know why I can't think of his name.
His name in real life or in the movies
In
or
the movie, in the Christmas Story, what's the main character's name?
oh, Kevin.
No, that's Home Alone.
Oh shoot. What am I wait. Oh, A Christmas
He
Story.
wants a BB gun for Christmas.
Oh, that's him. Okay, I had the wrong kid. I had the wrong kid.
Oh, yeah. Okay, then
Okay. I
that
was like,
probably makes a lot
huh.
more sense.
No, that makes more sense actually. His name is somebody listening is probably screaming it in
Screaming.
their minds right now.
I'm just gonna look it up.
It's like I want to say like Arthur
I was gonna say Andy.
Andy. It could be Andy.
I don't think it's Andy though. We'll see. Let me see. Hmm.
It is.
Ralphie.
Oh my gosh. Of course. How do
Yeah.
I forget that? I watch that movie literally every year.
Every year.
Ralphie.
Yeah. So anyway, that's a good fun fact. Ralphie grows up to be an engineer at Stark Industries.
That's really funny. I would have never in a million years connected that.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So yeah, those are my favorite engineering things from movies that I'm obsessed with.
That's a good list. I like it. And I think that we could do this again. I like talking about this because it connects the fantasy world of movies to the real world of engineering to also the entertainment side, you know?
Hmm. It inspires the next generation to strive for something better than we have today.
I think if science fiction didn't exist, there'd be a bunch of stuff that we don't have. And there'd be a bunch of stuff that we wouldn't have done.
100%, absolutely.
Because science fiction dates back, 1800s, right? People are writing about, I mean, early 1900s. I still can't believe that Lord of the Rings was written in the 50s.
Yeah.
Like it's that old.
Well, I
I mean,
mean, so Jules Verne. Let me see. Um, Jules Verne was a science fiction writer who wrote a book called 10,000 Leagues Under the Sea. And
yeah.
he wrote that in 1872. And it's about
Wow.
a submarine going around the world having these adventures. A submarine in the 1800s. No one had,
And they
like,
get out and they can like walk around on the bottom of the ocean with
yeah, yep,
these suits that allow you to breathe oxygen.
yep.
Like that's all for real.
And, shortly thereafter, Civil War happened, and we had these boats that were metal. They called them Ironsides. And
Hmm.
then I don't know if the submarine came around in World War One or World War Two. I think it was World War Two. But
Yeah, I think it was more widely used in World War II, at least.
yeah.
Much more widely used.
So to wrap up things, do you have any recommendations this week?
Crap. What was my recommendation? You want to go first?
Yeah, I really really love this YouTube channel. It's kind of specific, and so it's not everyone might not like it, but I've been getting into CNC machining, so that's computer numerically controlled machining. And so the channel is called Winston Moy, and he has it's a desktop um, CNC machine, and he talks about how to machine and things to look out for and projects that he does, and it allows me to kind of dip my toes in CNC machining and something that I want to get into, because you can't do all of manufacturing with 3D printers. You have to use both, because they have pros and cons for each one. And so you, I want to get one so that I can learn more about it and expand my skill range. And so I recommend this channel just because they're entertaining and you get to learn things about CNC machining, which is understanding the tools at your disposal as an engineer is crucial. So yeah.
Cool. I would recommend a YouTube channel as well. It's called Corridor Crew. So much fun to watch. So they're a bunch of VFX artists, and every week, at least, they come out with something called VFX Artists React. So they sit down and they watch a bunch of clips from movies of VFX scenes, so like CGI and stuff, and also practical effects. And they kind of compare like the best and the worst and look at like how hard it is to do, and they talk about how they did it and stuff. And they get real people on there that talk about how they actually did the VFX for the movies and stuff. They've done like Lord of the Rings, Blade Runner, all the big ones. They talk about how it's done. It's so much fun. It's so entertaining. So
Weren't those guys the same ones that did the spoof video with the Boston Dynamics
yeah,
robot?
so well done.
That was
Like,
amazing. I showed it to my wife and she was terrified. Um,
yeah, you think it's real.
so if you know who Boston Dynamics is, they made a robot that does parkour. They can like do flips and stuff and jump on boxes and
It moves
like
like a
cool stuff.
human.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And these guys, they made a video of the same tests. And so some of the tests that Boston Dynamics did is they pushed it around and they hit it with sticks. And like, it sounds really mean, but what they were doing is they were teaching the robot to react to different stimulus. And so like, if it gets hit, how does it recover? And so what the channel Hayden is talking about, the Corridor Crew, you said,
Yeah.
what they did is they made a similar video, but towards the end of the video, the robot like becomes self-aware and
it
starts
grabs
fighting them
the
back.
it grabs the stick that they're swinging at it and like rips it out of his hand.
Yep.
And then I think that at one point they pull a gun on it just to see how it will react or whatever, and it like grabs the gun from his hand and turns it around.
Yeah, it was really, really well done. So you guys should go check that one out.
Yeah, if you didn't know, you would think it's real. Like it's the visual effects that they do are so good. So they do a bunch of fun stuff like that. So I definitely recommend that to you guys.
Well, cool. That's a good recommendation. Just to wrap up, make sure you guys get on Instagram and Twitter and follow us. We can chat and, get topic suggestions and different things like that. And it also helps us know what you guys, the listeners, want to hear more about.
Yeah, let us know what you guys want us to talk about. We're open to suggestions. We're looking for more ideas. So hit us up. And with that said, have a great week, you guys.